Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Donovan, and today I wanted to talk with you a little bit about one of my favorite topics, which is Alan Moore. And I've been taking his Maestro class, and I wanted to share something that I've learned with him. There's so much to learn in that class, and it's definitely worth going over, but this is one of the things that really stuck in my brain as like, oh, that's freaking crazy. This is that the greatest technology of all, the technology that underlies everything that humanity has created, is language. And it's not just language, it's the alphabet. So 26 letters, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And this is just in English. 26 letters rearranged in different sequences creates all the concepts of that we're is used to describe all anything that we can conceive of, right? Anything that a human can conceive of in the English language is based on those letters. It's kind of like, DNA is based on the 4 or 5 amino acids. That's what was used to write all the life forms on the planet, right? But the letters are what's used to create all the words that bind law, entertainment, gave birth to mathematics, gave us absolutely everything. It's why you can play video games. It's why you can put a person on the moon or go to the bottom of the ocean or share ideas and create this huge distributed human computer, right? Like humans are to civilization what neurons are to brains. And we are swapping everything in this interconnected network called the internet. And it's all about, this incredible communication explosion that has resulted in a massive cultural shift, just more information being shared than at any time in human history. It's crazy that we are alive in this time and place. And it's all because of these letters, A through Z, the alphabet, right? Or, depends on which language system you're using, but English is a pretty common ground for a lot of stuff. And I know that it falls short sometimes and can't describe everything. But I want to talk with you a little bit today about the origins of language. And most of us don't think about, where the letter A came from or where the letter M came from. Like it's just the letter M or the letter A, and it's really boring. But I got a thing for what's called the Futhark runes. And the runes, which are these, you've seen them if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, because that's what the dwarves wrote in. These runes were the beginning of the English language. Okay, and what happened is people had twigs. That's what they used to write. You could take and break twigs apart and use them to form these shapes. That's why they're all so angular, right? There's no curves in them at all. And they would leave each other messages, and these things meant something, right? They meant different things. For example, let me just say the Futhark runes, the Elder Futhark, went on to become the Anglo-Saxon runes, which are what the letters that you spell today are based on. The origin story of the English alphabet is the Elder Futhark. And the Elder Futhark are what you've seen in Lord of the Rings, right? It's the dwarven writing. And it originally started out, so it's a Norwegian language that is created when Odin hangs from Yggdrasil, tortures himself for a bunch of days, stabs himself in the side with a spear, and his blood pours out into a stream and coagulates into these runes, which is like totally awesome origin story, right? Each one of these later becomes a letter of your alphabet. So you thought that the letter A was just the letter A. It doesn't really mean anything. Well, it turns out it actually does, and it has an origin story unto itself. For example, right? Fehu used to be F, has become the modern day F. We have Manaz, which became the letter M, and I'll tell you a little bit about more of some of these. A, Ansuz, it became the letter A. Rado became R, and so on. There's this whole thing. Gebo became, gee, it looks more like X, but, you know, it's a little complex. Anyways, the point being that each one of the letters has an origin story. Let's just take, for example, Bracano. So Bracano has become the letter B, but back in the day when, you know, the Vikings or the Nordic people were writing, they didn't really have pens and papers, but they did have twigs, and you could put these twigs together and form these shapes, right? That's why you'll see that all of these shapes could be made with twigs. And they each meant something, right? A different thing, a whole story, not just the letter B. It was birch. It was beginnings, right? D, the gaz. That's the sun, the energy of the sun. This is Gebo, which becomes gift, right? So, and Hegelaz, which is H. And think about this for a second, right? These are all primal, super important concepts that you got to talk about every day. These are the most important concepts, 24 symbols that represent the most important concepts in your life, including hail. Oh, difficult times is what that means. Isa became ice, a lot of ice in the northern countries. I have a great story about this that I won't be able to tell, but this is Jira. Jira is the yearly cycle of planting, tending, harvesting, and laying fallow. Becomes the letter J, and so on. But this one is probably my favorite. You'll notice that right here in the middle, you could split this and they would basically, right, topple over on each other. They support each other by the way that they connect. And the reason why that's important is Manaz is man, and we need each other. This is also sitting on my altar right now. I drew a bunch of runes the other day, 4 runes, and they're kind of top of my mind because this is the interdependence of people. We don't do anything without each other. We're a tribe. If a person without a tribe, it's kind of screwed, right? If you don't have a social network, you're in tough. We need each other. We depend on each other. And that's such a, like, what? The letter M just became so much more awesome, right? It goes on and on. This is wealth. also known as Othala. For those of you who've seen Midsummer, you might recognize that in the table design. Thor, Thurisaz. When you think back to, that the letters of the alphabet create everything you can think of. And when you write them down, you can do these things that are really amazing. And one of the things that you can do is, this comes from my hero, Carl Sagan, is you can write books. And Carl Sagan, man of science, right? You're kind of like, why would a man of science say this? Well, great question, because it's true. And in a nutshell, a book is made from a tree. It is an assemblage of flat, flexible parts, still called leaves, right? The Native Americans called them talking leaves, imprinted with dark pigmented squiggles. One glance at it and you hear the voice of another person, perhaps someone dead for thousands of years. Across the millennia, the author is speaking clearly and silently inside your head, directly to you. Writing is perhaps the greatest of human inventions, binding together people, citizens of distant epochs who never knew one another. Books break the shackles of time, proof that humans can work magic. All right, so when you write something, these words transcend time and space, right? The words that were written down in ancient Judea or whatever, 2,500 years ago, became the canon of Christianity. They influenced Islam. They've caused wars. They've eased suffering. They've brought suffering. They've guided people's lives, especially if you're a fundamentalist. They are stories that were deeply profound, right? The story of a good guy, a magician who could turn water into wine. It's a bit of a necromancer, right? Who raised people from the dead, goes on to take over the mythology of the Roman Empire, which at the time was the cult of Sol Invictus, the cult of the invincible sun god, because the sun is pretty freaking invincible, right? Like it's, everybody worshipped the sun god because it came up, it gave us light, made all of our crops grow around, it kept things warm, it could kill you. It's a big thing, and that mythology of the sun god gets taken over by the mythology of the son of God, which is really, there's some interesting linguistics happening there, right? Like if I was gonna just change one letter and have a completely different effect on the world, right? I would change sun, S-U-N, to S-O-N. And suddenly you've totally hijacked the mythos of a civilization. It's profound. And if you're into Harry Potter, you appreciate spelling, right? Every day we spell out our words. Then we take and we cast those spells. We broadcast them through SMS, email, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, right? The world has organized this phenomenal, Teilhard de Chardin called it an electronic brain, that within the past 25 years, the planet has self-organized a an electronic brain, and the foundation of that brain is letters. It's written word, right? It's stories, it's information, knowledge, culture. All of this because the words that people have specifically chosen to affect each other. It's deeply profound and humbling, and it really brings to attention how important it is for you as a writer to choose your words carefully. As Alan Moore says, don't write Mein Kampf, right? Please, be careful of the words that you're going to use, and because they're going to have vast repercussions that you can't even anticipate, right? You're a storyteller. Nothing is more memorable than a good story. Nothing changes people's lives like a good story. So tell a great freaking story. Make it, infuse it with meaning, because meaning is the foundation of magic, right? As you know, Alan Moore is a magician. He says it and he means it, and he's full on legit, because he understands the origins of language, right? From the first symbols written on a cave wall back in, 25,000 years ago, that would later grow to become the language that we use to create law that binds civilization, to create the mythology that keeps us all from killing each other, right? Like we used to back in the good old days. In conclusion, let's just say, Alan Moore, he's an author of some of the most amazing comics, from V for Vendetta, Watchmen, The Killing Joke, Swamp Thing, whatever. He has this phenomenal imagination, but it makes me think of one of my favorite comic book characters, who I don't think Alan Moore ever wrote for, and that is Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. So become a really good writer and be responsible about it. And that is what it means when you're a wizard, right? Wizard literally means wise. Be wise. Think about the consequences of your actions, right? It's not just intelligence. Intelligence is like, I know it, but it doesn't really understand the repercussions of what happens if you unleash this terrible technology on the world, right? That's where wisdom comes in. The wisdom of King Solomon, who was the wisest man that ever lived, right? That King Solomon was the only guy who could put the genies back in a bottle. And that's, where we're at in the modern world. There are all these genies that have been unleashed on us. And how do we put them back in the world? How do we put them back in the bottle? The genies of technology that haunt our lives, that are changing the way we think as a civilization. It's profound times that we're living in. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate a like and a subscribe, because I put some time and effort into this, and it's good to know that somebody cares. All right, have a great day.